What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another car review. This is of course the 2018 Maserati Quattroporte GTS. Huge thanks to Maserati for providing us with this very sweet GTS Quattroporte to review for you guys today.
Also, huge thanks to the Automotive Video Association for arranging this vehicle and 9 other awesome cars and SUVs for the second annual Automotive Video Awards, which brings 7 of the best car reviewers in video and myself together to decide which is the best performance car and performance SUV of the year.
So about the Quattroporte GTS, well, it's been a little bit refreshed here. 2019 gets even more changes, but up front, I really love the low headlights you have here in the Quattroporte. The Ghibli's similar, but this is even more exaggerated with this long nose and those headlights that sit so low. It's really different and gives it a very low slung, more aggressive look than some of the competition. I also love the grille there, which has the concavity to it so that you have the large Maserati logo there, and it just looks really good. I love that grille. Coming over to the sides here, you have 21-inch wheels on the Quattroporte GTS, which are just massive, and you have the nice red brake calipers behind it. You also have these portholes here in the fenders, which is always a nice touch here that you see on some other Maseratis as well. And then going down towards the back end of the vehicle, you'll see another Maserati badge there behind the rear window. And then out back there, you have some very attractive tail lights. You have the quad exhaust tips that look very good. And overall, it's just a very long and slender looking vehicle that's just really attractive from just about every single angle.
Whereas for the interior of the 2018 Maserati Quattroporte here, well, it's a pretty nice place to be. It's a mixed bag here, but first off, these seats are great. Really nice, soft Italian leather seats here that just feel really good. Now, they have basic adjustment for, lumbar and stuff, but they don't have any kind of, bolstering adjustment or anything like that, so not quite as feature-packed as a lot of the competitors in this segment. So as long as you're okay with a wider seat and don't want anything super sporty feeling, these seats are really great, but they are nice and soft. They're also heated and cooled here, and so that's a nice feature to have. The cooled seating actually does get them pretty cool pretty quickly, and so that's well done, but just wish there's a little more customization in the seats. Next is the steering wheel here in the Quattroporte, which is wonderfully simple. With most of the steering wheels in this segment having tons of buttons, this one just has a few and it's really refreshing. But first, you have a great 9-3 grip, nice little 10-2 notches, and you have these glorious huge metal paddles behind the wheel here that are actually mounted to the column, not to the steering wheel itself, so you don't ever have them moving around, which I personally like. You also have the volume and tune rockers here on the back, and then on the front you just have some buttons for your cruise control and one little rocker here to change all this stuff in the gauges, and that's basically it. So it's a really attractive wheel too. I like the metal accents, the design, and overall it's a little bit of a bigger wheel it seems, but still very nice. Next, the gauges here in the Quattroporte, which are actually really attractive. So this is where you start to see some of the FCA influence. Of course, you still have the nice analog dials, which are very attractive. I always love the blue backgrounds. They look great with those very cool looking needles, and the fonts are attractive. But in the middle there, you'll see what is very similar to what you see in any other FCA product with that screen in the middle there, where it has all your vehicle information. Not quite as much info as you see in some other FCA stuff. It'd be nice to see like a boost gauge, for example, since this is turbocharged, but you don't have that, unfortunately. But just, it does show your media info and all those types of things too, which is great to have. One strange thing though is you'll see in the top there, it has the time and date on both the left and the right side, and it's just really bizarre. They repeat that information twice. It almost seems like it's like a little bit of a glitch, but it's nice to have. I don't know about having it twice, but just an interesting little quirk here that's typical, I guess, with some of these higher end exotics. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, right up top, you have a really nice little analog clock with the GTS logo on it and the Maserati logo as well. And you also have a nice leather stitched dashboard here that is really good. You have this carbon fiber that's a really nice optional add-on. I love the red. Everything's nice and softly padded. At this point, all the red you see is nice and softly padded. But then you go down to some of the other plastics. This black plastic by the transmission tunnel is very hard and cheap feeling, honestly, and I mean that's where you start to see some FCA stuff, but it's just kind of disappointing considering a Mazda that's $25,000 has padding here and this doesn't, and this vehicle is in the 130 range for pricing. So So that's something that, you know, shouldn't be something that should be overlooked. They should have, you know, soft touch stuff everywhere when you're paying this type of money. So that's one little complaint. But one very positive thing, though, is this 8.4-inch Uconnect touchscreen you have here in the Maserati. Now, that is another carryover from FCA, but this is one of the things you want to have carried over from FCA instead of some weird other thing from some other, you know, company. The Uconnect system is one of the best systems out there. It's so easy to use, so straightforward. It has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which a lot of the exotic stuff still does not have as well, some of the other competitors. And that is, I mean, it's just so easy to use. It is so fast, so responsive, and absolutely fantastic there. So I absolutely love that screen. I'm so glad they integrated that in. And then you have this row of buttons here beneath it for your climate. And, you know, I would wish they were metal or something that felt a little bit nicer, because they aren't the highest quality again for those. A little bit disappointing there. You have this gear shifter too, which I will briefly demonstrate here. It's not accurate, and this is a little tangent, but you know, it's sometimes, you know, it's, oh, I don't like the way it looks or the way it feels. This is like, sometimes I have to like tug it twice to get to go into drive, and then I want to go up into reverse or park, and sometimes it doesn't always respond. Going into manual mode's kind of tricky, and you can hear, I mean, it makes a horrible sound. I mean, again, you don't even see this on some, you know, normal vehicles with, you know, regular automatics in the compact car class, let alone something that's expensive. Should not be squeaky. It should not, you know, be tricky to use. You should be able to put your car in drive and park very easily. And so I like the way that this shifter looks, and thankfully the shifter is something they've improved for 2019. So this is just 2018 and older that have this issue. If you have a 2019, or if, you know, you're interested in 2019, they have a revised shifter that fixes all those issues. So just a little thing to note there, but don't want to harp on it too long, since they have already fixed it at Maserati, and I'm glad they did. You have a few little row of buttons here for sport mode and stuff like that, and so you also have your volume. You might be wondering where the volume knob is, since there's nothing at the screen here, and that's this little stacked rotary thing here, which it actually has a nice feel to it, these metal dials. And so the top one here will actually do the volume, and then the bottom one actually is kind of like an iDrive kind of controller thing, where it just kind of cycles through all the different you know, menu things you can touch. And, you know, you can use that, and then the top part is just an OK button, basically. So, you know, I think it's kind of useless, but I know there are some people, you know, coming from the German vehicles that want a controller instead of a touchscreen, and so that's, I think, why they did that. But, you know, I wouldn't even bother with that, aside from just changing the volume. And so, but nice to have nonetheless. As far as storage space here in the Quattroporte, it's okay. It's not the greatest, but it's not horrible either. First off, in the doors here, you have a, you know, pocket, but doesn't really have enough space to fit a bottle in there, which I kind of wish it did. But anyway, coming over to the middle here, you have this carbon fiber cover to cover up your cup holders, which are a little bit on the small side. You also will find a power outlet there, and just kind of wish they were a little bit bigger, but still nice to have them right out there. Then you have this other little cubby back here, and that's it as far as stuff outside of the center armrest. Now you do have the center armrest, which is pretty softly padded, not super nice, but you know, it is have a little bit of padding on more of this great Italian leather. Anyway, you open that up, it splits in the middle, and then you'll see a power outlet in there, and a pretty deep cubby, which, as you can see, has 2 more cup holders built into it, which is really clever. It's the first time I've ever seen anything like that in a car, and so that's great. You know, if you need a little more cup holder space, or just want the extra depth there, I mean, that is really cool, and so really glad that they've included that. And so all things considered, you know, it's a pretty decent amount of storage space. Backseat space in the Quattroporte here is pretty good, actually. You know, this is a nice long vehicle, and so it benefits from that here in the back seat. So I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself, I easily have, I'd say, about 6 inches of legroom to spare. Very spacious and comfortable, and a good amount of headroom as well. So actually really spacious and really well done back seat. It's also, you sit pretty low back there, which is nice, and more of that soft leather. You have air vents back there, as well as, you know, a few climate controls, your heated seat controls back there, and also a little cubby. And then you also have a fold down center armrest, which has 2 cup holders built into it. Trunk space in the Quattroporte is also actually really good, again, because of that long length this vehicle has. It's a nice wide opening, and it goes really deep back there. I would say it's definitely better than anything else in the midsize class, and really, you know, rivals a lot of the stuff in the full-size sedan class. I mean, it's just a very long amount of space. You can fit 4 persons luggage in the back there without any issues whatsoever, and so overall an excellent trunk. All right, so it's time to go for a drive. The Maseratis here have this it's a really heavy key, actually, but it has a nice large Maserati logo there. It's just a really cool, unique key. I mean, you'd have some buttons here on the back that, you know, aren't metal or anything, but this is all metal here on the sides, and this just is such a solid key. I love it. So, of course, the keyless access, keyless entry, push button start. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, which is on the left side of the steering column here. And it starts right up. All right, so setting off in the 2018 Maserati Quattroporte GTS. So the first thing you notice about this, well, it's just a nice vehicle to drive. I will say, though, that I have my seat down a little bit lower, which is great, but all the dashboard and everything seems a little higher up here. So I feel like they're almost at eye level here. Instead of me looking down at the gauges, it's like they're straight in front of me almost. I'm looking up a little bit more. Also, the steering wheel doesn't get quite as low as I think I would like it to. So it's up a little bit high, but just a little, you know, difference to get used to. Other things, though, it's pretty quiet and refined. You know, I think they use a lot of sound deadening and obviously want to make it a very refined feeling vehicle, especially at this price point, and you know, fit in line with what you expect out of a Maserati. And so, yeah, it's a pretty nice thing to just cruise down the road in. Visibility is also really good with pretty thin A-pillars here, and good view out of the sides and back as well. But let's turn down on the straight road here and see how it does. I'm in sport mode. Here we go. Oh, got some wheel spin there. And listen to that. Wow, that sounds really good too. You can just hear a faint burble from that V8. But man, it pulls well. Wow. So the Quattroporte here has a Ferrari-built 3.8-liter twin-turbo V8 engine that does 523 horsepower, 524 pound-feet of torque. It'll do 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds, which you know, might not seem super fast for a vehicle you know, with that type of numbers to it. But you know, it is still rear-wheel drive, even though some of the competition has gone to all-wheel drive. This is sticking with rear-wheel drive, which is just fine by me, because I mean, this thing, I like the wheel spin that you get and all that type of stuff. It also makes it a little bit lighter. It's about 100 pounds lighter than a new M5, thanks to this not having that all-wheel drive system. So a little bit lighter, even though it's a little bit of a longer, larger vehicle, which is cool. But yeah, total curb weight is right under 4,200 pounds at I think 4,189 to be exact. Other things to notice here. So you can feel a little bit of a delay from the turbos before they really start cooking, but this motor is really cool because, like I said, it's built by Ferrari. It's actually built in Maranello, this engine. The vehicle itself is, I think, built somewhere else in Italy, but it's, you know, this is actually a Ferrari engine you have here, and if you put an aftermarket exhaust on these things, they sound glorious as well. But even as it is here, you know, it still sounds really good. Burp out of the exhaust and the downshifts there, I can kind of hear a little bit. Man, this thing pulls strong though in those upper RPMs. And going around some tighter corners here. You know, you got these 21-inch wheels, which I think really helps to make it feel a little more flat and composed. But I still find myself feeling like there's a little more body roll. This actually feels a little heavier than the M5, I think, honestly, just because of the way the suspension's set up to be a little bit softer. But I'm going to put it into the manual mode here, and let's see how these paddle shifters do. So we have the glorious ZF8 speed once again making an appearance here. So glad FCA uses this transmission. It is so quick and snappy, and this is right up there with any of the other ZF8 speeds. I absolutely love this transmission, and I love these paddle shifters being on the column because I know always where to grab for them. And if I want to make a you know, change mid-corner, which I know isn't best form sometimes, but if you want to change gears while you have the wheel turned a little bit, it's really nice to always know where they're at. I love these paddles. They're so enjoyable to use. They're a nice thick metal. But anyway, so yeah, manual shifting is great, but we'll go ahead and put it back into the automatic. Other things to note here in automatic mode. So throttle response is pretty good. Like I said, you wait for those turbos a little bit, but other than that, I mean, as soon as you start dipping into the gas pedal, you start getting response, which is really nice. Another thing that's pretty good is the brake response is pretty good as well. Now, you do have a good amount of dead travel before you really start getting some braking action. But then once you do hit it, they do stomp on the brakes pretty well, and so it gets you slowed down pretty quickly. I mean, it's not any kind of carbon ceramic sensation or anything like that, but it definitely has some pretty good brakes on here to give you some confidence as you chuck it into corners. But yeah, I really felt the roll in that corner for sure. It definitely leans and stuff. Now, I think this is Maserati always sets their vehicles up to be Grand Tours, and so it's very quick. It's not something I think you'd want to take onto a racetrack or really push hard all the time. But whenever you do want to drive a little spiritedly, it'll kind of work with you on that. But like I said, just not the flattest of handling. But because of that, you have a little bit of a softer ride, which I personally like. Now, I mean, you do still feel some road vibrations, because of these 21-inch wheels on these tiny, skinny little tires, which I believe are 245 in the front, 275s in the rear, which have very small sidewalls on them. But it still feels pretty good. Also, the steering actually feels pretty accurate. It's a little bit of an odd weighting sensation to it, not weighting, but weighted as far as the way that how heavy it feels. Where on center it's a little lighter, and then as you start turning more, it seems like it varies itself a little bit. But overall, it feels pretty good. Has a nice weight to it though, as far as it takes a little more heft, so it feels a little sportier here, which is cool as well. Another acceleration. This thing really loves to rip. Yeah, I think the thing I'm enjoying the most about the Quattroporte GTS here is just the mountain of torque that you have. I mean, it's just these turbos when they surge on. It is just a very powerful feeling. It's not quite as insane as something like the new M5. That's 600 horsepower, so that's even a little step above. But this is a really nice in between, I think, between the regular stuff with its normal power plants and the full-blown crazy versions. I really like the way this feels. And so I think, the Quattroporte is, for someone that wants to be unique, they don't want to have the same BMW as, every other coworker, and, they want to stand out a little bit. They want something a little more unique, a little more special, and I think that's what Maserati does very well, because, if you compare, every touch point to every touch point in the competitors, like I said, that's where this falls short, whenever you're judging it, on those merits. And a few of the other details that are a little more classy, like the metal you have around the air vents here is nice. There are some really nice parts of this interior, and then you also just have the rarity. Like I said, going back to just being unique, you have the rarity of the Maserati, in general. I mean, they're not very common. They're getting a little more common, with some of the other stuff like the Levante, which is selling a lot more. But Quattroportes are still really rare. You don't see them very often, and so especially if you live in a place where there is a lot of money, and obviously you can afford one of these, which aren't cheap, but you don't want to have the same car as everyone else around you. This is a really good way to stand out, and it's still an excellent vehicle. It's a lot of fun. Like I said, you have really great infotainment, which is huge these days and something that's really important to a lot of people, myself included. And so, all those main things, I think they really did an excellent job with. One thing that is kind of tough to get over too as well, though, is the pricing here of the Quattroporte GTS. So obviously, lower Quattroportes can start, much lower than this, but as this one sits, this one is right around $138,000. So there are a lot of optional extras on this one and stuff like that, but clearly, the Maserati isn't going to have anyone beat on value, really. It's just about, being unique, and again, having more of a positioning of someone who wants to stand out. They don't care how much more that costs, and they just want something that's unique. I think this, is definitely where that market is at. But like I said, you can get a Quattroporte. I think, these start in like the 107 range or something like that. So you can get them a little more affordable, if that's the word to use. But yeah, it's still one of those things you definitely have to have plenty of money if you want to get one of these, at least new. This is still a really cool vehicle. So huge thanks to Maserati for providing us with the Quattroporte GTS to review for you guys today. Let me know your thoughts on the GTS version here in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.